So Dr. Isra is an associate professor of industrial and management systems engineering at Kuwait University. She holds master's and PhD degree in industrial engineering from the State University of New York at Buffalo, which she earned both degrees in 2001 and 2005, respectively. Her collaboration portfolio includes working with some of the prestigious organizations globally, which includes the United Nations Commission Committee on Environmental remediation efforts following the Gulf War. Additionally, she partnered with the United Nations Environmental Program and the United Nations Industrial Development Organization on a project focused on national resource efficiency, cleaner production in Kuwait, and water assessment. Dr. Al-Isa also contributed as an author to the Science, Technology, and Innovation STI report published by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, the UNESCO. Currently, she serves as a consultant to the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, working on transboundary water management projects. She's passionate about education, and she is dedicated to its improvement on a national scale. She is the founder of the education initiative named From Here We Shall Set Sail. And based on some people I know who are close to her, looks like she loves bees, and maybe she will confirm that to you also. So thank you once again, Dr. Isra, for being here with us. We are eagerly anticipating and waiting some of the knowledge you have gained and will share with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm humbled for this introduction, and I thank the conference organizers and YCC for giving me this opportunity to explain something about green ecology and economy. Okay, should I go ahead and share my screen?
Yes, please.
All right. I hope you can see the screens.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so I thank you today again for giving me the space to introduce this topic, and I'm happy to be part of this expo. So today's topic is about balancing sustainability and economy. So my first encounter, with ecology and economy was during the Gulf War. So during the Gulf War, we had around over 700 oil wells set deliberately on fire, which made the largest man-made environmental catastrophe in history. During this project, I was a risk engineer working on uranium depletion zones, as you can see in the picture that was way back. And this was my first encounter between the disassociation or the disunity between economy and ecology. What happened was the dilemma on, we had so much damage. These ordnance that you see are covered with uranium, so that unfortunately they have to penetrate the target. So I had to assess the damage associated with the unexploded ordnance and with the 700 oil wells that went into fire. So the damage was devastating. And then there was a committee, a panel of lawyers and economists in the United Nations trying to put a dollar sign next to this damage. And the way they did it, they said, okay, how would we assess and put a dollar sign next to this damage? And they thought, let's think of the most economic way to treat this damage. And then it's by the cost of cleaning it, it will be the cost of the damage. So I go, okay, so if you're going to make someone sick, is the cost of having this person sick is is the amount of treatment. This is the way to evaluate the environmental damage. What happened in the story is that Kuwait was compensated by $52 billion, which was 15% of the initial claim that was given to the damage. But the story was that none of this money was able to restore the damage that happened to the weathered desert with the weathered oil lakes and the fires. And the money was used to create natural reserves. So as if we're trying to maintain what's there, but not to restore the damage that happened during the war. So what is economics and how it relates to the ecology? So economics is the study of how people would choose their resources. So in fact, what we do is that we do extract all our resources from Earth, and then the money is in the production, the distribution, and in the consumption. So the amount of money we make by extracting these resources is adding economical value to a commodity. So did we go far in this? Is economic activity is changing the planet? So you can see the magnificent Aral Sea. The Aral Sea stands as the fourth largest lake worldwide. It has salt water and it's really rich in fish. So what happened is that during the Soviet occupation of the area, they thought that cotton then was the true gold. They called it the white gold. And the entire economy was towards planting cotton and exporting it. Nobody would have imagined what would happen to the Aral Sea. So you can see what happened through the years with the Aral Sea. So I just cut the video short. So what happened to the Aral Sea? It lost most of the water that was there. So this was in 1989, and now 2008, and now it's even less. They tried to restore part of it, but it never came back. The Aral Sea had lots of ports around it, and all the cities. It used to yield between 40,000 to 50,000 tons of fish, which also contributed to the economy. No one would have imagined that this renewable resource, which they thought that would be replenished by the rainwater and by the mountains, the ice melting would ever deplete this way. So now this is how the Aral Sea looks now. It's like a desert and a devastating environmental catastrophe of all the residue of the chemicals in the salt that's now creating new forms of cancer and respiratory disease that's happening to the cities around. Nobody have imagined this. So just to let you imagine the disaster, the Aral Sea is 14 times the size of Kuwait, and now it has disappeared. What about fossil fuels? Now, as you know, the Earth go through cycles. But today, we have reached double the CO2 levels that ever reached the environment. So now you can see that, yes, we have a deadline right now. And then this clock is in Manhattan, indicating like within 7 years, there will be no return, and we will reach the 1.5 degrees Celsius, where the climate will really be affected and the results will be irreversible. And you can see in this video now the biggest snow meltdown that happened in the Arctic that was caused in camera. We'll start the video.
Nothing's happening.
So they predicted the time. So they placed cameras.
We had some serious bouts of wind.
They placed cameras, they predicted when the meltdown will occur.
It's starting, Adam, I think. Adam, it's starting.
Oh wait, Jim, this is the big piece is starting to cast.
Let me call you back. Call him back. Okay, bye. Still going? Yeah. In that V section right there. Holy shit, look at that big bird rolling. All four are running, right? Yeah. Look at that. You see how, look at the whole thing.
As you can see, I just want to show you the size of the devastation that happened. This event has never happened in history before. It's the size of New York City. And usually this amount will melt in 100 years.
Event that we just looked at. We'll resort to some illustrations again to give you a sense of scale. It's as if the entire lower tip of Manhattan broke off, except that the thickness, the height of it, is equivalent to buildings that are 2.5 or 3 times higher than they are. That's a magical, miraculous, horrible, scary thing. I don't know that anybody's really seen the miracle and horror of that. It took 100 years for it to retreat 8 miles from 1900 to 2000. From 2000 to 2010, it retreated 9 miles. So in 10 years, it retreated more than it had in the previous 100.
So I invite you to watch this video on chasing ice. So it shows what climate change have caused Earth. And this, of course, would cause like the sea rise level. So this was driven usually by an extreme consumption. So we have seen through statistics that the current consumer per capita is consuming 5 times what they consumed in the 1950s. And most of these expenditures are happening in services. So we're flying more, we're transporting more. So the expenditures really went up per capita. So it's not only the population that's increasing. It is the expenditures per capita that's exploding as well. So you can see that the GDP per capita has risen exponentially and this is causing, of course, all the climate change crisis. So the question that raises here is, can we have economic growth and tackle climate change in the same time? What do you think of that? So experts had 2 opinions about that. They said, okay, we can do this through green economy, where we can use renewables and we can recycle all the goods. And then with that, we can maintain this exponential growth. Some other researchers have said, no, you cannot do this. You really need to cut consumption down. Even with the renewables, with the current exponential growth that you see in the image, even with renewables, you wouldn't be able to achieve sustainable development. So these 2 points is like when you look at these cookies, the 2 different views on that. In green economy, which you see on the left, they say, okay, you're eating a whole cookie. Green economy is saying you can eat the entire cookie, and even you can eat more than 1 cookie, as long as you have artificial sweetener, or you don't have like butter. So it's like fat-free, or maybe you have artificial sweeteners. The other point of view, which is degrowth, they're saying, Maybe you shouldn't replace the ingredients, but eat portion of the cookie. So in green economy, which is the first point of view, they're saying, okay, let's invest in green technology. Let's invest in renewables, biofuels, recycling, biodegradable materials, climate crops, etc. in green tech. And this would help us sustain the economic growth while having a greener economy. And most of the research in universities was taken in this direction. Actually, there is the latest UNESCO science report, which is established every 5 years. They have an issue. They really prioritize the transition toward the sustainable goals and to the race in saving climate change. In this the latest edition, they said, okay, you can reach the sustainable goals. To do that, the transition should be digital, should be clean because the clock is ticking, and we really don't have time. And you can see these are the statistics on the research that was published, and you can see a high rise on adopting on energy and renewable energy. And then you can see also that the amount of statistics have really tripled when it comes to floating plastic debris in the ocean. So most of the research in engineering and economics regarding this matter is going towards sustainable energy resources, developing batteries, saving the oceans from the plastics. And then you can see there's a rise in battery efficiency, sustainable transportation, biofuels, solar panels, wind energy, hydrogen production, and less on nuclear energy. So the world and research and universities are really trying to invest into green technologies that would really serve a greener economy. Also, lots of research has been conducted towards recycling. And also, lots and lots of companies were really investing into recycling. There's recycling of batteries, recycling of metals, recycling of gravel and cement, recycling of food, paper, and plastic. And then you can see that now the countries are having a race. This chart shows the race in the European Union regarding plastic recycling. And so some countries would say that they recycle more than 50% of their plastic waste is getting recycled. Spain is the same thing. Netherlands, Germany, Estonia, Norway, and many of the countries, they're recycling almost 50 or more of their plastic. But what statistics also show that those countries are not recycling plastic on their land. And the truth, what's happening is that the plastic is shipped towards China. So the majority of recycled plastic or waste plastic is shipped to China, where they think that the recycling is taking place. So let's see what's happening in China. So what happened? So many agencies have discovered that it's actually all the reports that showing greening the economy through plastic recycling is not actually recycling plastics. So all the data that's showing that plastic is recycling, it's actually plastic sent to recycling, which never gets recycled. So Center of Climate Integrity and many other centers have issued a statement saying the fraud of plastic recycling. Actually, the biggest conferences on plastic recycling worldwide, many of them are funded with the biggest plastic wasters. So China, as a result, have banned waste plastic imports in January 1st, 2018. What happened then? What will happen with the 11 million tons of plastic that has nowhere to go? Did the statistics in the European countries and Western countries reduce because China is not receiving plastics? Not at all. So the statistics on plastic recycling kept increasing, although China is not receiving it. So where does it go? So what's happening now after banning the China ban on plastic waste, most of the plastic waste is also going through barges to Asia, because what happens is that full barges with goods come from China to, for example, to the United States, and when it comes empty, they don't want to come empty because they don't want to have a dead load. So they take a load to go back to China, carrying waste plastic. Some of them dispose it in the sea, and some of them send it to Malaysia right now. Malaysia government is really working hard on this issue because the plastic is not getting recycled over there. Some of the plastic is getting to Thailand, Vietnam, Hong Kong, and some African countries and some other Asian countries. So what's happening in Malaysia?
Based on our investigations, we found that most of this plastic waste originates from as far as the UK, US, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and so on. We are really seeing the broken system or the myth of plastic recycling, because here we have the countries sending their plastic waste halfway across the world to other countries. We have been working with the local community members and representatives from Jenjarong and Klang who are affected by the unregulated imported plastic waste issue.
So that's what's happening. So they're saying now, like in many research, plastic producers lied about recycling. That's what reports have revealed. Malaysia right now have closed around 15 fraud plastic recycling manufacturers, and they're working on closing the rest. So this is James Mitchell, which is a nano a technologist and a chemist, which says that plastic recycling nonsense, you cannot.
Plastic and recycled plastic are the same price, and you can't use reprocessed plastic for anything food related or pharmaceutical related.
Oh.
Plastic is a bunch of non.
Yeah. So now I think you can see the video. So what Professor James is saying is that plastic recycling is nonsense, because you cannot use it for food industry or pharmaceuticals or anything that's related to like direct human consumption, because of the heavy chemicals used in washing the plastic and recycling it. Also, the properties will not allow the end product to be used in many of the plastic products as far as quality, color, and characteristics. So what about sustainable transformation for a greener economy? So even that, in the name of a greener economy, fraud was found to be there. You can see in the cars, we have this kind of sticker that's on the car saying that this car has excellent or efficient in fuel consumption. But some companies like Mitsubishi have admitted that they have falsified the fuel economy data, and they did that for over 600,000 cars. Mitsubishi was not the only company who did that. Actually, these are several companies that have also falsified their efficiency report. So they used green economy to improve the current GDP and economy. Now, many of these companies have really took steps to rectify the oversight that they have done and then in their data collection mechanism and to put the true numbers on the reports. But still, the problem is going on in trying to greening the economy. Actually, the European Union itself issued in 2007 a strategy where they want to use biofuels because it's a better and a cleaner for the environment. So they issued the 2020 to 2030 strategy on using biofuels. And they had huge bioreactors through Europe with great funding towards that. So what's biofuels? Biofuels is using biomass that could be refined and then it could use into transportation and many other manufacturing activities. So what happens in biodiesel and biofuels is that it goes, you have the fields and then it goes through manufacturing and it gets transported. The problem is when you look at the entire life cycle that shows here, the problem is they found that biofuels would have higher carbon emissions than fossil diesel. Am I promoting fossil fuels? God forbid, I'm not doing this. But using the biodiesel within the same, the quality and the same amounts would pollute the environment more. Even worse, what's going to happen is that the soil will erode, and then there was an issue of soil erosion, water use, water quality, and the use of land to feed cars rather than feeding humans. There's a book that I really encourage you to read, which is called Life After Fossil Fuels. It gives a reality check on all of these fuels and how to be used sensibly. Recently, also, there was the ambition, thriving hydrogen economy, which is also the buzz is also reaching our countries here in the GCC. Many countries have adopted a strategy for generating electricity from hydrogen because when you have cars using hydrogen, you will only have water from the exhaust. So it was part of the UK strategy that this would really the hydrogen economy is a green economy. And the biggest company promoting this is Mitsubishi, and they have established like a color wheel for the hydrogen. They said, okay, you have the black hydrogen that comes from coal, you have the blue hydrogen that comes from natural gas with carbon capture, you have the green hydrogen, and hydrogen is the future, and this is the fuel, the genie that would really solve the crisis of the greener economy. And now they're traveling all over the world trying to change the power plants to work on hydrogen instead of working on fossil fuels. So if you go back to this book, you would see realistic analysis on how producing hydrogen is actually more polluting than fossil fuels. In fact, most of the hydrogen that's used in the hydrogen economy uses fossil fuels to store the hydrogen. It's only a small amount that's less than 1% that comes from renewable resources that is plausible. Now, I'm not saying that hydrogen power is not good, but where is it coming from? It's coming from natural gas, fossil fuels, and coal. It's only less than 1% that it's coming from renewable resources. So maybe hydrogen power is good when it's produced from waste or food waste, but not to fuel the entire economy. So what's sustainable transportation? Maybe public transport, the good old public transport and other resources, carpooling is better than the economy than what's promoted in the media. What about hydropower? Now, I do really believe in hydropower. Hydropower, where I used to study in New York, in upper state, it would fuel like fuel 30% of the power generation over there. It's clean energy, so you have huge dams, and then you can create energy out of that. So this is an example, one of the largest dams worldwide. This is the Ataturk Dam in Turkey. This dam have contributed 4.3 billion USD to the economy. The Ataturk Dam supplies energy to 2.1, like 2 million households per year, which is really a staggering amount of energy, and it really replaces fossil fuel, which is really good. And then Turkey has established the İlsu Dam, for example, which is a bit smaller than the Ataturk Dam. One of them is on the Tigris River, and the other one is on the Euphrates, Dijla and Furat of Iraq. And both dams are really huge. They reach a height of 170 meters, and they can hold a capacity of around 50 billion cubic meters of water. They're used for hydropower mainly, and they use the water for irrigation. The problem is we lost water coming to Syria, to Iraq, and Kurdistan. This photo is taken from Iraq, where in some places the water level have reduced by 80%. And you have the mangroves have entirely diminished, and all the agriculture has also diminished in southern Iraq especially. So there is a downside to it if it wasn't used sensibly. Also, we have the İlsu Dam. Some of research were saying that because of the change in water, the huge water flow, some of these huge dams have triggered earthquakes around the area. And some do relate the latest earthquake that happened in Turkey due to the huge dams that were built in Turkey. This is the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, also one of the biggest dams worldwide. This dam is built around the Blue Line, the Blue Nile, that goes through Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt and other countries. This dam, because the consumption of Africa per household is less than Turkey and some of the Asian and European countries, this dam could supply around 16 million households a year. Now, this dam would also affect the agriculture in Egypt. So if this dam took 10 years to fill, it will reduce the agriculture in Egypt and the agricultural land by 18%. And if this dam was filled in 5 years, it will reduce the agriculture in Egypt by 50%. So is it energy for food? So greener, are we really, with the current growth, do we have a green economy, or are we trying in greening the economy? So let's go back to the question we had at the beginning. So experts had the two different opinions, saying that we can have the same growth, the same consumption, using the green economy principles, recycling and renewables, and then the other point of view stating that you cannot sustain the economy with the current exponential growth, even if you're using the renewable energy and recycling. So as long as we're having this media that's striving for great and the huge consumption that we're having in fashion, in food, this model of ownership and entitlement, some of experts are calling it the consumption and addiction that needs to stop. So the degrowth movement are working on reducing consumption, and you cannot reduce consumption unless you convince the society and change the behavioral patterns. So lots of research are attributing the overconsumption as a societal addiction that really needs therapy. So the Balding expert said that exponential growth forever. Anyone who believes that the exponential growth that can go forever in a finite world is either a mind man or an economist. So there has been a huge movement called the degrowth movement, saying basically less is more. Let's downgrade, let's descale, let's decentralize, and let's focus on communities. And they're saying the only way of growth is degrowth. We really need to cut on consumption. And then they're also saying that GDP is never a measure of wealth. Um, and there was an article in Financial Times saying why the world's richest countries are not all rich. And what's happening is that all the GDP is not going to the poor and the citizens, and it's not contributing to the well-being. Maybe because uh, 8 men in the world have half the wealth in the world. So they're saying if you're saying the GDP is really contributing to a wealth to the well-being of the nation, well, let's see that it's really going to 8 men that are living in these countries. Yeah. So if you can see, if you go to the economy and the mostly consumed products, you would see that they go to a few companies worldwide and they're contributing maybe to that GDP that even through tax is not going to the citizens. And this book, which I really encourage you to read, Prosperity Without Growth by Tim Jackson, he have crossed the GDP per capita with the life a human could live, and increasing the GDP would really not contribute to the well-being. So after a certain level, you can say like after 30,000 USD per year, which really could satisfy the basic needs. After that, it will not contribute to the health of well-being. Actually, the Senator Robert Kennedy once said, famously critiqued GDP, saying that GDP measures everything except what makes life worthwhile. So what's well-being? It's a state of a positive feeling. And actually, there's a World Happiness Report. There's a report that could really measure well-being through happiness. So this report collects data from 150,000 individuals worldwide. Assessing their level of happiness. And then they have statistics now for the countries. And you can see that Denmark, Finland, Iceland, maybe those countries have sustained the highest measure of well-being worldwide. And we need to see why did they have this like well-being and what kind of economy is feeding into that. So as a result, the report shows that actually having social support, having being generous, and trusting into the government are really sources of happiness, satisfaction, and well-being. And it's not related to GDP and income per se. And if you cross the countries with the highest GDP, with the countries that stated that had the highest rates of well-being, you would see that these countries are not the same. You can see that there is no like parallel lines. Like in this figure, the correlation between GDP and happiness does not exist. For this reason, many of countries have moved into an economy that's based on well-being instead of an economy that's based on GDP. And these countries are now augmenting their strategies to think of well-being, which instead of GDP. And we have seen this during the pandemic. Some countries have really increased the GDP during the pandemic, but the well-being of their citizens were not increasing at the same rate. So going back, you would see that Finland is on the top of the list when it comes to well-being. Actually, it's been the top on the list for 7 years in a row. So we needed to investigate what made Finland highest in happiness. And I don't know if you have visited Finland, but I did. It's really cold. And having these kind of beautiful sceneries is not available year long. You can have it only like a month and a half every year. You have like months without any sunlight. So what makes them the happiest country? They cannot enjoy this kind of scenery, and they don't have this sunlight. They cannot enjoy the outdoors. Actually, a psychologist have investigated what makes happiness and well-being, and then he stated some phrases that the Finnish people would like repeat every day. For example, who has happiness should hide it. That doesn't mean that happiness. Well, I believe that happiness only exists when it's shared, but we're referring to social media. So not everything that we see in social media regarding happiness and environment, it's really causing satisfaction and happiness. And also, there's a saying in Finland that says some people have happiness but some people would have happiness. Everyone has summer, but not everybody would have happiness. And there are other phrases that they repeat. So actually, if you have a closer look into the Finnish system, that you would see that there is a role in education in really teaching students into the importance of sustainable consumption and the importance of simple things contributing to well-being. So the principle of equity, the principles of outdoors. Most of kindergarten in Finland is in the outdoors, and then when they did statistics in schools, they would see that 91% of students would say that they're happy, and 88% of girls would say that they're happy, and this also reflected into their adulthood. So they have really planned education, planned well-being, and the respect to the environment within their curriculum to inspire lives and enrich lives and inspire values. So there's something called the hidden curriculum in schools. So this is why we really need to spread this among young citizens. And what's creates well-being, respect to the environment, and really creates a green economy is through the education systems. This video shows the kindergarten in Kuwait, like in 1964. By the way, my mom is in this video, and you can see that it was even in those years, they would train children to eat meals that looks home cooked. So they would, using a hidden curriculum, teach them that not to consume from the outside. You can see that the value of the outdoors and the respect to the environment and to respect to one another. So this is you can see this is my mom showing in the photo that appears. I know that there's a lag in the video. So there is something called ethical consumerism, where we would know where is the food is coming from and how much we should consume from everything from any commodity that would really contribute to cutting consumption and helping the economy to be greener. So even the school ranking, the impact ranking, the Times Higher Education have several ranking procedures. So there is the typical Times Higher Education ranking, there's the QS ranking for higher education, but there is something called the higher education impact ranking in higher education, where they do focus on the SDGs, and they focus on life below water, responsible consumption and production, rather than citation. And in these, you can see that the top universities who has ranked top in this impact are not the classical elites of higher citation and research production, because they were investigating the schools that would really contribute to society, to a greener economy in practice. You can see that maybe Western Sydney University was the first one. And you can see that also other universities that are not among the classic tops have reached the top 5. Going back to the UNESCO science report, we have learned that through the pandemic and through what's happening through the environment, that we are all deeply connected, and the human activities have really was the source of driving climate change and the loss in biodiversity. And it's the science, we all have to collaborate, and science has no borders. And if science didn't contribute to human justice and to society, then what's the use? So if it's not really contributing to policy decisions that has to do with social equity, and this is what science should focus towards. So what am I saying? We should not be using digitization or solar power or hydropower. Absolutely not. I do totally support using the solar power, renewable. We should invest on hydropowers and all of these technologies, but we have to really use them in a very responsible and a sensible way. And recent studies have also showed that growth in renewable energy should really be conducted in a decentralized and descaled way, because otherwise it won't really be feasible. So the cities needs to be smaller, the power plants needs to be smaller, so that it could be it could be adapted with the fluctuations that happens in renewable energy, as far as hydropower, solar power, and all kind of clean energy. So we should invest in these technologies, but we should really cut our consumption. Well, history have showed us and practice have showed us that we cannot take anything for granted. The sea, the Aral Sea, which is the size, 14 times the size of Kuwait, have vanished. Nobody have imagined that. The Euphrates and Tigris River, Adijra al Furat, has really reduced to 35 to 20% of its size. It went 80% of its original volume. So resources which we took granted to be renewable could no longer be. So what should we do? We should really use our fossil fuels towards sensibly investing in these technologies, but in a responsible, sensible ways, while maintaining degrowth. Even the elements that we use in creating our solar panels come from fossil fuel sources, and these could really go deplete. So what we should do, we really invest in these sensibly. So this saying is by Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum, which is the father of Dubai ruler. He's actually the architect of modern Dubai. He said, in a quote, "My grandfather rode a camel, my father rode a camel, I ride a Mercedes, my son rides a Land Rover, but my grandson will do, but my great-grandsons might go back on riding camels." Well, this might not be the case if we really invested in our resources sensibly. So to make an economy truly greener is to make the future the cause of our present. With that, I thank you for listening to this presentation. And if you have any questions, please go ahead.
Dear Dr. Ezra, I think we don't have any more time for the questions.
Okay.
Because I need to go to the next rooms.
Yes.
So
I
sorry,
know.
and I didn't want to stop because it's such an interesting topic, and I think all the participants from the Young Citizens Conferences of Expo-Sciences Asia will need this information to continue their debate. And of course, on behalf of MILSET Asia and MILSET Global, I want to thank Dr. Ezra Leisa and Dr. Abdulatif Al-Yakut, MILSET Asia Authority, for being here, for taking the time of giving such important information. And we are sure that all the debate sessions will be held perfectly, and the kids will love it. So for the rest of the participants who are registered on the YCC debate sessions, in a few minutes you will receive the link to enter the room to your discussion, okay? So we will get out of this conference and you will enter your conference. Please check your WhatsApp group, the room you are registered in. And remember, this is only for registered participants. For the guests, thank you very much for being here. And well, we will send all the greetings and questions that were written in the chat room. Thank you very much to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
opportunity. Thank you.